Okay. Hello, welcome back, everybody. I guess it's been a gap for me, not necessarily for you, right? So this is the sixth video lecture. I'm scrolling, looking for the slides here. This is the sixth video lecture in infancy and toddlerhood, and we are in the topic of social and emotional development, which is sort of my, what do you call it, my jam. So we left off talking about cognitive development. You'll remember cognitive development is about the way that babies learn to think, or cognitive is thinking. Social and emotional is our ability or the way that we interact with others. And babies are born, actually, babies, yes, we all are born with something called temperament. And this is a really important concept in child development. Temperament is defined as an innate characteristic of an infant. And then the theory is that your temperament is sort of consistent across the lifespan, and temperament influences or contributes to how other people interact with you. So your textbook, I don't have it on the slide, but your textbook talks about the phenomena of bidirectional development. So we'll and it'll make a little bit more sense. So this is a baby's innate characteristics that are generally attributed to like activity level, to emotional reactivity, and to mood. And for our purposes, we can think of temperament as having three different qualities or three different kinds of temperament. You have the easy child, which means the child is easy to calm down. They have a regular sleeping and eating schedule. Their emotions are easily predictable, right? So these are the easy babies. If you've been around babies or people with babies, you have heard this phrase before. Then you have the difficult. The other end of these are the difficult babies, and these babies are the ones that maybe don't eat or sleep on a predictable schedule. They are difficult to soothe. They're irritable. They are not flexible. Like if their schedule gets disrupted, that's difficult for them. That everything has to be. These are the more difficult babies, right? The ones that are harder to predict, harder to sort of respond to. And then you have a whole group of babies who are somewhere in between, what we would call slow to warm up babies. So maybe so some of the other characteristics that fall under temperament are things I'm thinking about my own children, because my daughter was very easy. She was in a good mood when she woke up. She didn't need a strict schedule, like you could disrupt her schedule. She wasn't picky about the foods that she ate. She wasn't fussy. If she was fussy, she was easy to calm down. But my son was on the other end of the spectrum, and I'm not so sure he would be difficult, but he was certainly slow to warm up. Like William needed a pretty predictable schedule. If he didn't get his nap at a certain time, he had to have his nap or he'd get irritable. He didn't like to try different kinds of foods. If you disrupted his routine, we saw this early. We saw this early in his development. I remember even a daycare provider saying, "Yeah, William needs a lot of notice before you switch activities." So so easy babies are, and this is the key, right? So your book talks about this goodness of fit. And what goodness of fit means is the relationship between the parenting style, and even the parent's personality and the way a family's life is organized and the child. So if the adults live a life that's very predictable, right? That they have a routine that they follow every day, they get up at the same time, they have meals prepared at the same time, and maybe the parents, the adults, they like that lifestyle, they can maintain that lifestyle. This would be okay. This would be easier if for a child who had a difficult temperament, because there's a lot of predictability. If, on the other hand, the parents, or maybe the parents don't have a schedule, in my family we would call them the artsy type, right? They don't necessarily have a fixed routine. They're more adventurous spirit. I don't know, their lifestyle is less structured. That's going to be a little bit more difficult. And then what happens is, if you don't have a routine, right? Like you like to kind of do things whenever you feel like it. You don't go to bed at a set time. You don't get up at a set time. You don't have dinner every night at 5:45. And your baby, like you live this sort of more flexible lifestyle and your baby is difficult, that is not a goodness of fit. This is the point I'm trying to make. That is not a goodness of fit because your lifestyle and your parenting strategy doesn't fit with the way what the baby needs. And depending on the parent's personality, this can affect the way you think about your children, right? If your children have come along and they've required you to change your lifestyle, you're going to feel differently towards them than if your children fit your lifestyle, right? So in my household, we don't have, or at the time, we didn't have, sort of a lot of structure. And so when my daughter comes along, the fact we didn't have a structure was fine with her, because she was just really easy to deal with. That's the significance of temperament. And to know a child's temperament, right, this is important as the parent to recognize that this is just an innate thing about them, and to understand that you may have to modify the way you organize your life in order to best meet the child's needs, or it's going to be really difficult along the way. So temperament is just a part of personality. Personality, we don't spend a lot of time in this class talking about personality, but if you were in the psychology class, we have a whole chapter. Personality is defined as your patterns of behaving and your emotional patterns that are consistent across time and place, right? So we begin to see temperament is one of these elements of personality. And my son is 30 years old and he still likes to have things. He still likes to have routine. Things still have to be his way, the same way they were when he was much smaller. And the qualities, the significance of culture, the qualities of personality that get reinforced or maybe are elevated or there's more attention to are variable, are flexible. The qualities of personality are influenced by cultural preference. So, for instance, in an individualistic culture, I forget exactly the terms that your textbook used, but in an individualistic culture, self-reliance is going to be important. Maybe independence is going to be important. But in a collectivist culture, cooperation may be highlighted. Those may be more desirable personality characteristics. Maybe I should put that in this class too, but in some of my other classes, I invite students to do a big personality assessment assignment where they can where they learn a little bit about some of these personality traits like independence, self-reliance, these kinds of characteristics. Okay, so moving on. So part of obviously social and emotional development is a conversation about emotions. There's so much I want to talk about here, right? So emotions we think of them as really like there's three different elements of emotion. There is the sensor, the stimulus phenomena, like the observation of what's going on. There's the way our body responds, and then there's the way we respond. When we talk about emotions, and we talk about like problems with emotions, we're usually talking about the expression. We're talking about what we call the emoting, the expression of our feelings, not those other two pieces. So I'm going to sort of focus on when we talk about infant emotions, what we're talking about is the ability to, or the way babies respond to their environment, the way they emote, right? And at birth, the textbooks tell us that babies have two. They either are attracted to, so they give more attention to, or they turn away. So this is how researchers study infant emotions. Do they look at it? Do they engage? Because that's really all they can do. That means they're attracted to it, they like it, or do they turn away? That means they don't like it. By the time we get to 2 months old, we see indications of what we would call social smiling. The theory is, or the idea is, that before this point, any kind of smiling is probably some sort of, physiological, like gas or something. But when we get to 2 months, I made a note here. What does your textbook call it? We call it social engagement. All right, so this is the socially engaging smile. 3 to 5 months, researchers claim we see indications of pleasure. 6 to 8 months, they argue that we've begun to see three of the what we'll call the six universal emotions. Fear, and fear is the response, the emotional response when children are in the company of a stranger. Sadness is defined as for instance, in the company of a stranger. Sadness is defined as the experience of the caregiver is separate, and then anger is the emotion, the assumed emotional response when children, infants, are prevented from getting something. Okay, I'm watching my time. It's 10 minutes. I'm going to stop here and come back and talk more about infant emotions.